All right, guys, so we got some absolutely massive updates for Kamala Harris's election chances. This is a really important state, so I reported recently that Kamala Harris has officially opened up a second path to victory that is completely independent of the Rust Belt states. That is right. As of right now, she's able to win the election without winning a single Rust Belt state, and that's by winning the Sun Belt states plus NC. So this North Carolina is this huge state. It was actually a lot of people I thought it was going to go blue last time around. Didn't end up going blue. But what's happening is it's turning towards Kamala Harris. So this article from Politico says Harris upended Trump's electoral fortunes. Just look at North Carolina. The state, which Trump won in both 2016 and 2020, had for months looked like an easy win. Last month, Donald Trump and his team were still predicting blue states like Minnesota, Virginia, New Jersey, and New Mexico could become battlegrounds this fall. Now he's shoring up a purple one. On Wednesday, Trump made his third visit in 4 weeks in North Carolina, a state he won twice and where he was solidly leading President Joe Biden in polling over the last year. Trump's visit here, tucked between campaign stops this week in several swing states that he lost in 2020 while Democrats gathered in Chicago for their convention, was another sign of the dramatic changes in electoral fortunes after Vice President Kamala Harris moved to the top of the ticket. Trump's most loyal supporters in Asheboro, a ruby red patch of the state, lined up for hours to attend, showing the strength of his MAGA base. It says, out of his tightly secured rally, though, past the vendors hawking red caps and flags on the road leading to Trump's events, Republicans admit that the changed dynamics of the race in North Carolina are striking. In interviews with several longtime GOP officials, operatives, and strategists in the state, each said their money is still on Trump to win the state. But they acknowledged that as of now, such a victory would likely only be narrow, and they expressed concern about what the decreased Trump margins would mean for other down-ballot races in the state, particularly Republicans' efforts to flip the governor's office. So the governor's office is another big one. So the Democrat is leading big right now in there, and I can't remember if there's also going to be an abortion ballot also in North Carolina, but it's also theorized that the governorship being there would stem the voters to turn out for the Democrats as well. There's obviously going to be split-ticket voting, so all we need is kind of some turnout to happen for that, but that's another potential reason for why this could happen. This is wearing a Let's Go Brandon shirt at the rally. Jeannie McDowell, 46 of Asheboro, said she's concerned about the increasing difficulty to win the state with Harris at the top of the ticket. It's become a tighter race. Now we're worried Kamala might take the lead, McDowell said, explaining that because she's younger and she's a woman, Harris may appeal to some voters in a new way. What should Trump do to keep Harris from winning? Keep his mouth shut, McDowell said. Senator Ted Budd said there won't be a real race until after Labor Day, adding he was confident of Trump's prospects in the state when Republicans talked about Harris's record, safety, and the current high prices. We've got a great pathway to victory as long as we focus on the issues. It goes on to talk about this a little bit more as well. So it's a state which Trump won in both 2016 and 2020. It must look like an easy win for the cycle. Trump led Biden in virtually every public poll conducted since last fall. Earlier this last year, Trump tapped two native North Carolinians, Michael Whatley and his daughter-in-law, Laura Trump, to serve as chair and co-chair of his remade RNC. We've got to win this state. This state is very big state to win. We've won it twice, and we're going to win it again. So it's pretty massively in place. Why is North Carolina even in play at this point? Asked one prominent Republican operative in the state who was granted anonymity to speak freely. Why is Trump feeling like he's got to spend so much time in North Carolina? There's reason to doubt the Democrats, despite forcing a competitive race, can pull it off for one they haven't since 2008. Decapitating the top of their ticket so long Harris has helped diminish the enthusiasm gap for Democrats, said Jonathan Feltz, a longtime GOP consultant in the state. But Harris still doesn't provide North Carolina Democrats with a better message for rural North Carolinians. So what we can see here is North Carolina was a really close race back over in 2020. It was barely lost. So he actually lost it by less than 1.5. I actually forgot about how close this was. I kind of felt like it was more like closer to over 1.5 or 2. But it was a loss of only 1.4 points. If we take a look at the North Carolina polls here, the way that the North Carolina polls look like in 2020, he was actually leading by 1.8 on election day, so a lot of us thought that he was actually going to end up winning the race. But the polls ended up being wrong by about whatever, like 3 and some change points, like 3.5 points that they were wrong by, and he ended up losing the state by about 1.4. But normally the way I would approach this kind of a situation is I would say, okay, well, did we win it in 2020? If no, it's not winnable. If yes, it is winnable, potentially, maybe, just maybe. But there's a caveat here. So there's something going on in the state of North Carolina. Now, I always say this with a caveat in elections. If it's going to flip, there had to be some kind of demography change if there's no evidence of being able to win it in the past. But so we have this article from the Office of State Budget and Management of North Carolina. It says, North Carolina's strong population growth continues. The U.S. Census Bureau's latest population estimates show North Carolina continues to grow by leaps and bounds. And you can kind of see this picture here. Texas is number one with 473,000 people added. Florida is 365,000. North Carolina is 140,000. It says, once again, North Carolina added more people in the last year than any other state except Texas and Florida. According to the U.S. Census Bureau's latest population estimates, an additional 140,000 people were added to the permanent resident population of North Carolina between July 1st, 2022 and July 1st, 2023. Since the last decennial count, there have been 396,000 people added to North Carolina's population. So that's after the election, by the way. It's April 1st, 2020. So, or I guess, I guess that wouldn't be after the election. So, never mind. So, North Carolina's population with 10.8 million people, North Carolina remains the ninth largest state in the nation. At 1.3%, the rate of growth in the state exceeded that experienced during previous 2 years. North Carolina's rate of growth was the fifth fastest among all states in District of Columbia. So it's one of the fastest growing states in the country. And so net migration is dominating right now. So the number of people moving to North Carolina far exceeds those leaving to other states and abroad. Since April 1st, 2020, there was an estimated net gain of 376,000 people due to net migration. State to state or domestic migration, international migration. This accounted for 95% of total population growth between April 1st, 2020 and July 1st, 2023. So presumably the bulk of that happens after the election. And then this article from May 13, 2024, it says, how is North Carolina population change occurring? And so it says, last year, North Carolina added more people than all but 2 states. The patterns of population change seen in U.S. Census Bureau's latest population estimates gives a first glimpse at post-pandemic trends. Births and movers are moving into area increase it, and when it dies, decrease or leaves it, is what happens. But it says, although most North Carolina counties experience positive change in at least one component of change, almost 3/4 experience positive net migration. Only 21 counties, mostly urban and suburban, experience both natural increase and positive net migration. So what's happening is you're seeing that in the blue counties, there appears to be a influx or growth of population in voters. And so normally where I would say, like, hey, you didn't even win North Carolina in 2020. How on earth are you going to be able to win it? But the thing is, the caveat to that is if there's a high demography change, that indicates that the voter base is going to be different, and so there's a potential for change there. So what we can see is it's the third fastest growing state in the past couple of years. Presumably the bulk of that, like 400K net migration or 400K net population gain happening after the election, of Biden's election. There's hundreds of thousands of new people moved in there. And so presumably you would be able to win the state despite the fact that you didn't actually have it. And so if you look at Harris's current numbers for North Carolina, this is also another great piece. And so she appears to have taken the lead for the first time. So that's also kind of breaking here, right? Bracking. Probably should have mentioned that at the beginning of the video. But she's not taking the lead in the aggregate. She's up by 0.2%. So it's 48 to 40, 45.8 to 44, 45.5. I'm assuming they're rounding something here. One of the numbers, probably Kamala's number, maybe. But so she's leading now. The one benefit of North Carolina is your polling error has to be around 3 to 3.5. It's not as good as the Gaza states, Georgia and Arizona, because in Georgia you only need like a 1 point, not even like you don't need that much of a polling error to be correct. It's like whatever 0.3 was how much it was off by. Or like 0.8 is what it was off by, somewhere around there. So less than 1 point. In Arizona, you only needed about like maybe like a 2-point error. In Wisconsin, it was like a 7-point error. In Michigan, it was 5 points, and in Pennsylvania, it was like 3.5. So Pennsylvania and North Carolina are actually around the same in terms of how much they were off by, because Biden was up by about 2.5, and then Trump ends up winning by about the same amount that Biden was up by. So somewhere around like a 3-point shift, basically. So like we have this kind of 3-point off that we need to cover. So I think if she's able to hit like a 2 to 3 point lead, I think there's a good chance that she'll win if she's at that point in the poll numbers. In the double D's numbers, she's also in the lead by 0.1 in the head-to-head. And then I'm not sure if in the RFK numbers, if they're even higher than that. But we can see, so the lead appears to be the exact same in the North Carolina polls. Both ones is 0.1 is the margin. So this is huge, because if you do this, what ends up happening in this situation, if you're able to pull North Carolina, the hedge that North Carolina, we can see these numbers right, 276, 264 for this one. But if we were to, let's say, lose all of the Rust Belt states, you would still be able to win if you get NCGA, AZ, and Nevada, right? The Gaza states being Georgia and Gaza, right? Georgia, and then AZ backwards, and then just strung together like a string in Python, like two strings in Python. This gives you a whole alternate pathway where you could somehow lose all of these, and I highly doubt this is going to happen. I think you can't lose Michigan. I think Wisconsin is the most likely to be lost because the polling error was so unfathomably awful in 2020. PA was actually the closest in terms of a polling error. It had the least polling error, but Michigan went by 2.5 points. I don't think you lose Michigan. I really find it hard to believe. So even if you don't pick up NC in that case, let's say you pick up, just Gaza and NV, you still win. There's so many different pathways here to victory. I mean, you lose those and you're still able to win if this happens, or maybe some combination like this or something like that. Like you're able to win, or can you win like this? This would be a tie, so this would not be a win because we lose. But the beauty of Kamala Harris's candidacy right now is, she has so many paths to victory. She's not destroying Trump anywhere. But the thing that's probably going to lead to her winning is there's just too many ways to win. There's too many ways to win. So not only do you have the situation where you lose all Rust Belt states but win, the Sun Belt plus NC, but you're also able to win, where you just win the Rust Belt, or you can win with a bunch of Wombo combos. And so AZ, I feel like looks really sexy right now because things happening in AZ is abortion is on the ballot. We know that there's lots of overperformance in 2020. We know that there's also, Kerry Lake is on the ticket, which I forgot to mention in my Arizona video last time. We also know that Cornel West is not on the ballot. And then we also know that Kamala Harris does better with she does really well with the minorities and that kind of stuff. And those states are more diverse than the Rust Belt is. So AZ, I feel like is really hard to lose. So let's say maybe you lose AZ, or you win AZ, you lose GA, you pick up Michigan and North Carolina, you win. You know what I mean? Kind of a random combination like that. This you lose, unfortunately. But, there's a bunch of different kinds. PA, I think, is more likely to go blue than Wisconsin because of the polling errors. But super crazy. So North Carolina, absolutely huge in this election. It is in play. And I have a good feeling about NC. I'll make my final prediction the day before the election. But I have really, really good vibes coming from North Carolina. So hopefully it'll pull through for us. But absolutely game-changing for the election.